Hi there, this is Kristen with Hooks, Books, and Wanderlust. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to crochet the first 15 rows of the Alora Wrap pattern. And if you can work these 15 rows, then you can make the entire thing. It's all you really need to know in order to make the entire wrap. I'm going to work a small swatch to show you the stitches, but I do have my finished wrap here for you. And as you can see, it just uses the most basic of crochet stitches. I've got chains, single crochet, double, half double, treble, and the trickiest stitch is really just this foundation double crochet. And I do have a full tutorial for that here on the channel, which I'll link in the description box below for you. But if you don't want to do that, I'll give you an alternative for that as well. So let's get started. Okay, so to get started, you're going to need a size 4mm or size G crochet hook and 750 yards of a CYC1 fingering weight yarn. This here is the Hawthorn Speckle hand painted from We Crochet. We Crochet generously provided me with the yarn for this design, so thank you to them for that. You're going to need 750 for the entire wrap. I'm just doing a swatch today, so don't let that fool you. So I'm going to go ahead and put my yarn in my yarn ball here, and let's get started. Okay, so I've got my yarn here. My first row of this pattern is a foundation double crochet. Now, I have a full tutorial on the channel here that I'll link in the description box below for you, so you can see how to crochet the foundation double crochet in a little bit more detail. It'll go over the finer points of the stitch. I'm just going to show you kind of briefly here, but I do go into more detail in the other tutorial. So I will link that below for you. If you don't want to do a foundation double crochet for your first row, you can always just do a foundation chain. I personally am not a huge fan of chains, and chains do tend to pull your work a little bit unless you work them really loosely. So I really like the foundation stitches for the fact that they give you a lot of stretch and give, and they're not a bunch of chains that you have to work into. Can you tell I'm not a fan of that? Okay, so the wrap calls for 301 foundation double crochets. Now, if you are going to opt for the foundation chain, you will do 303. That's 2 chains for the turning chain. Now, 301 seems like a really random number. It's not. In fact, you need to have a multiple of 4 plus 1 in order to work this pattern. So if you're going to lengthen it or shorten it, keep that in mind. So 300 is a multiple of 4 plus 1, which will give me the end stitch that I need to make the pattern work. And then if you are doing that foundation chain, it'll be plus 2. So 301 foundation double crochets, or 303 chain stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 2, yarn over, and I'm going to insert my hook under the back bump of my first chain that I made, yarn over and pull up a loop. Now from here, I'm going to chain 1. That's going to act as the bottom chain of our foundation double crochet. Then I'm going to yarn over and double crochet like normal. Pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's my first foundation double crochet. You'll notice as you work this, it's almost like you're working on a diagonal. So to start the second one, you've got to link it to the first. So you're going to yarn over just like you would with any double crochet stitch. And then you're going to insert your hook under the V of that first chain you made in the previous stitch. Pull up a loop, yarn over, chain 1. We're going to link all those bottom chains in order to link our stitches. And then you're just going to double crochet like normal. Just keep going with that. until you've reached 301 foundation double crochets. Just to give you a little pro tip, this is something that I like to do when I've got a large number of stitches that I have to work for my first row, because we all love counting our stitches, right? It's a necessary evil. But one thing that helps me is I will always have a stitch marker on hand. And for these long first rows, I like to count out maybe intervals of 50 or 100, depending on how many, depending on how many stitches in total that I need. I'll mark out an interval, and then I'll put my stitch marker there. That way, if I miscount later on, I can come back and I don't have to start counting all the way from the very beginning. So I'll do that a couple of times. When I was working my wrap, I did mine at intervals of 100. So I had a stitch marker placed at my 100th stitch, my 200th stitch, and then I was good to go. So that way it made it easy. I only had to count 100 stitches at a time. You can choose whatever interval works best for you. So I am going to finish working out a total of, let's do 25 foundation double crochets here for my swatch. Again, that's a multiple of 4, 24, plus 1 for 25. And then I will meet you guys back here at the end of that and getting ready for row 2. Okay, so I have my 25 foundation double crochet stitches here. Again, that has to be worked in a multiple of 4 plus 1. So a multiple of 4 is 24 plus 1 is 25. Again, if you are making the full wrap, that number should be 301 foundation double crochets or 303 foundation chains. If you did the foundation chain, you will want to double crochet into the 3rd chain from your hook and all the way across. I forgot to mention that part in the last cut. Sorry about that. So your first row is basically a row of double crochet. So from here, we are going to start the trellis kind of section. We've got a few rows of that. And to get us started, we're going to begin with a chain 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now this chain 7 counts as a treble crochet plus a chain 3. And when you're making that chain 7, I suggest making your 4th chain a little bit looser than the other ones, and maybe you might even want to put a stitch marker here just to help you find it later, because we are going to be working into that stitch on the next row. So 4th chain, make it a little looser, consider putting a stitch marker there. So you've got your chain 7, go ahead and turn your work, and because this counts as a treble crochet within that chain 7, we are not going to work into the stitch here at the bottom of our chains. That one's already accounted for by the chains because that counts as a treble. So when in the directions it says skip 1, you're actually going to skip this 2nd stitch. You're going to skip 1 and then single crochet into the next one. So into that 3rd foundation double crochet. So it looks a little wonky. We'll get that straightened out later, promise, okay? Now from here, you're gonna go ahead and chain 5, and you can make these all the same size. You're not working into these. And then you're gonna skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and single crochet into the next. You're gonna continue doing that all the way across the row. Chain 5, skip 3, single crochet. Chain 5, skip 3, single crochet. I'm just going to continue doing that all the way across your row until you come to 2 stitches remaining, which I am right about to right now. So here's my last single crochet there. Now I've got 2 stitches left to work. If you did the foundation double crochets, don't confuse your chain 2 at the beginning here as a stitch. So you've got 2 stitches left. You're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then you're going to treble crochet. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the treble, it works the same as a double. You just have an extra yarn over. So you're going to yarn over 2 times, insert your hook into the very last stitch. So you're skipping this one here, and you're going to go into the last stitch, and then finish your treble. So now you can see here, let me lay that out. And this will come up later as we block it out. It'll get all fixed. So you should have this cute little kind of, I don't know, it reminds me of the clouds I used to draw in my notebooks when I was doodling in class, when I probably should have been paying attention. So that is row 2. Now for row 3, we're going to do another trellis row, but this one obviously is going to build off of the previous one, so it's not exactly the same. It starts a little differently, ends a little differently. So you're going to chain 1 and turn. Now, where the previous row had the chain 7 counted as a stitch, this chain 1 does not count as a stitch, okay? So you are going to single crochet into the top of that treble you just made. All right, and then you're going to chain 5. Then you are going to single crochet into the chain 5 space, the next chain 5 space right here. So you're not working into the chain, you're working into the gap, that big old space. There's plenty of room for your hook there. So easy peasy. Chain 5, 4 and 5, and then single crochet into the next chain 5 space. You're going to repeat that all the way across. Oh, my yarn is snagging here. Sorry. Okay. So single crochet into that chain 5 space. 3, 4, 5. And as you come to the end here, you're still going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you remember at the beginning of the last row, I told you to make that 4th chain a little bit looser and to consider placing a stitch marker. So now you're going to work into that 4th chain. So I didn't put a stitch marker, so I'm going to count mine here. I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. I like to count the back bumps. It makes them really easily identifiable. And then you're just going to single crochet. So that finishes our row 3. Okay. So now we are going to do another trellis row. It's going to be the exact same way we did row 2. So we're just going to chain 7 again. There we go. Again, that counts as a treble crochet and a chain 3. But instead of skipping stitches, you're just going to be working into chain spaces. So you're going to go ahead and single crochet into that first chain 5 space. And then chain 5. Single crochet into the next chain 5 space. And just keep doing that all the way across. Okay, so I've come up on my last chain 5 space and I'm just going to single crochet into it like I have been. But now I'm going to chain 3 and treble crochet into the single crochet from the previous row. So you can see it here. So there you go. Now for our next row, we are going to try and straighten out our trellis area so that we can build off of it. So it works very similarly to row 3, but we are only going to chain 3 instead of 5. So again, you're going to start with a chain 1 and turn your work, and single crochet into the top of the treble from the previous row. And instead of chaining 5, you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Single crochet into the first chain 5 space, and just repeat that same sequence all the way across. Okay, so as you have finished all of those repeats, you've got your last chain 3 here. Just like before, you're going to single crochet into the 4th chain from your chain 7 here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and there's my 4th chain. Get under that back bump and single crochet. So now you'll notice, oh, this is all wonky here. But now you'll notice that it's kind of straightened out that edge here, and that's exactly what we want to see. So the next row is going to be a row of double crochet, and we are going to chain 3 to start the double crochet row. In this case, this chain 3 does count as a double crochet. So turn your work. You're not going to work into that single crochet that you just finished, because that's what your chain 3 is already there. That one counts as a stitch. Instead, you're going to start by going right into this chain 3 space, and you're going to work 3 double crochets into that chain 3 space. Okay, and next you're going to work a double crochet into the single crochet from the previous row. Whoops. And then you're just going to continue doing that sequence all the way across. I do recommend, this is a row where I found myself getting into such a meditative rhythm that I kind of worked a couple too many chain or double crochets into my chain 3 spaces. So this is a perfect opportunity to kind of count as you go. Just remember that you should have 3 double crochets for every space and 1 in every single crochet. And I also like to kind of move them out and spread them out a little bit, because as you work your double crochets, you'll notice they kind of want to all want to gather together there at the bottom. So that will help that'll help by spreading them out and getting them away from one another. So just double check that as you go, maybe every 3 or 4 chain 3 spaces, go back and check your counts and spread out those double crochets evenly among the chain 3 space. And just keep doing that all the way across here. And your final stitch is going to go into that single crochet from the previous row right there. So now I'm going to go back. Actually, I'm going to take my hook out quickly. All right, and I'm just going to kind of make sure I've got my 3 per space and single crochet, and spread those double crochets all the way out so that my counts are confirmed to be correct, because that was not fun having to rip out several rows of this small of a yarn. So counting will save you endless hours later, trust me. Okay, so now that we've got that, the next row is simple. It's just another row of double crochet. So again, that chain 3 at the beginning of our row, when we turn, that chain 3 counts as a stitch. So your first double crochet is going to be worked into the next stitch. And you will continue working all the way across the row, 1 double crochet in each stitch all the way across, ending with a double crochet in the top of the chain 3 from the previous row. I'm going to finish this and then I will be right back. Okay, so I'm just coming up on the end of my row here. I've got my chain 3 and another double crochet left here, and I just want to show you, just be careful you don't forget the chain 3 when you work this row, because that will throw your stitch counts off and that will make you sad because you'll have to frog. So we've got 2 rows of double crochet basically worked now on top of our trellis section, and we are ready to start some of the texture part here. We're going to work a row of half double crochet for our next row. Now in this case we are going to chain 1 and turn, and that chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so the first half double crochet is going to go into the stitch here at the base of that chain 1. So yarn over, insert your hook, half double crochet. You're going to half double crochet in every single stitch all the way across, ending with a half double crochet in the top of the chain 3 from the previous row. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I just finished the last half double crochet of that row, and again, that's worked into the top of your chain 3, so make sure you have not missed that stitch. And our next row is going to be a row of double crochet, but it's going to be worked into the 3rd loop of our half double. So as such, I choose not to count the chain stitches at the beginning of this row as a stitch. So I'm only going to chain 2, and then I'm going to double crochet under the 3rd loop of my half double crochet. I want you to see really well as I can manage here for you. So if you're looking at, I'm gonna pull this out a little bit here. If you're looking at your half double crochet, you've got your top V here, and then as you kind of turn it, you'll notice there's another little bar right here. That's the 3rd loop, and that's what we're going to be working into. So you're going to yarn over and double crochet under that 3rd loop, and double crochet as normal. And what you're going to notice as you work into that 3rd loop is it's going to create a texture on the right side of your fabric. So let's talk for just a second about right side versus wrong side. A lot of times, you know, you might not have a noticeable difference between the right side and the wrong side of your crochet fabric, but when you've got texture, a lot of times there will be. In this particular instance, and I'm going to stop here mid-row just to kind of show you, you can see how we're getting this raised look right here. So there's a texture there. Now we have it on this side, but we do not see it on this side. It's not there. So that creates a right and a wrong side of your fabric. So the thing to remember is when you're working your half double crochets, the right side of the fabric will be facing you. When you're working into the 3rd loop, the right side will be facing away from you. So as you can see, the right side is over here, and this side here is the wrong side that's facing me. So I'm going to continue to double crochet into the 3rd loop as we go here. And I will also mention, I do have tutorials for all of the basic stitches. It's in my Crochet 101 series, which is a playlist here on my channel. And if you are unfamiliar with working into the 3rd loop of the half double crochet, the video there, the yarn is a little bit easier to see that, and you might want to check out that video. So I will link that video below for you. That way you can see it if you need it. I'll link all the Crochet 101 videos down there. If I can link the playlist, I'll do that. I'm not really tech savvy, so I'm sorry. If I can't link the playlist, then I'll just link all of the individual videos, which might make more sense anyways. That way you can pick and choose what you want to watch. But yeah, so I'll put that in the description box below for you. Now, this is another place that I feel like it's really easy to miss your stitch because the half double crochet in a fingering weight is so small. So here's my last stitch. Just make sure you, might be beneficial to count again at this point. There is a lot of counting in this pattern. just because you want to make sure your stitch counts don't get thrown off. So I do really recommend, as I mentioned earlier in the video, to place a stitch marker at certain intervals, like 50 or 100 stitches, to help with that counting. So, okay. Speaking of counting, let's do that, shall we? Because we want to make sure before we get too far. So there's my chain 2. I'm not going to count that. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 10, 13, 16, 19, 20, 23, 24, 25. Perfect. That's the other thing, is like a lot of times I tend to count in threes and then add one for the 10th. It's weird. It's just the way I find that it's easier to do it. It helps me move along a little faster. So I've got my correct stitch count. So I am ready to move on to my next row. So now if you're following along, that means we are on row 10. And this is what I call the eyelet row. We are going to work double crochet stitches alternating with chain 1s to create some little gaps in our fabric. So to get started, we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Leave the third chain slightly looser this time. We are going to be working into that on the next row. So similar to our chain 7 and the 4th chain earlier, leave this one a little looser. Consider marking it with a stitch marker into the third chain here. So this is going to count, this chain 4 is going to count as a double crochet plus a chain 1. And because of that, we are not going to count this first stitch here at the base of our chain because it's already accounted for with our chain 4. We're going to skip 1, so we'll skip the second stitch, and then we are going to double crochet into the next one. So if you can imagine, this will be squared out. We're going to chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet into the next. So as you can see, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into the next, and just continue doing that all the way across. And you'll get these little holes in your fabric that we like to call eyelets. This is one of those rows that if you missed a stitch somewhere or added one somewhere else and your stitch count gets thrown off, you'll know it when you get to this row. So, I did something here. Oh, I accidentally skipped 2 stitches here. So see, easy to do. Okay, let's try that again. All right, so skip 1, double crochet. Okay, now we have the right number of stitches left. So I've got 2 stitches left here, 1 and 2. I've chained 1 and I'm just going to double crochet into the last stitch. So now you can see I've got these cute little boxes. That's the eyelet row. Row 10 is complete. So now we are going to move on to row 11, which is a row of double crochet again. And for this row, you are going to be working a double crochet into each stitch and chain 1 space. So we're going to chain 3, sorry, got a little tongue-tied there. That's going to count as our first stitch of the row. So our next one is going to be a double crochet into the chain 1 space. And then you're going to double crochet into the double crochet. Whoops. There we go. Oh goodness, Kristen. There we go. Okay. So you're just going to keep doing that all the way across. Easy peasy, right? I'll meet you right back here at the end of this row. Okay, so I've come to the end of row 11 here, and I am going to show you kind of like just a close-up of how we're going to do the last eyelet here. So if you remember, we had a chain 4. That chain 4 counts as a double crochet and a chain 1 space. So we are going to double crochet into the space, and then we're going to double crochet into the 3rd chain. So 1, 2, 3, that's this little pink bump here. And that is how you finish off row 11. For our next row, we are going to work a row of half double crochet. So we're going to chain 1, does not count as a stitch, and turn our work. And then we're going to half double crochet into that first stitch at the base of our chain 1 and into every single stitch all the way across. And just a reminder about right sides and wrong sides. We are working a half double crochet now, so that means the right side of our fabric is facing us, which means that texture we created before when we did this should be visible to us now. So go ahead and finish working your half double crochets, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. Okay, so I've just finished row 12, half double crochet. And I just want to remind you that that last half double crochet should have been worked into the top of your chain 3 from the previous row. So make sure you don't miss that one. Otherwise, again, that will throw your stitch counts off and you will be sad. Okay, so for row 13, we are going to do another row of double crochet in the 3rd loop. So we are going to chain 2, and that is not going to count as a stitch. So that means we will double crochet into that first stitch. Now remember, we are looking for that 3rd loop. So get under there and then just double crochet. You're going to do that in every stitch all the way across. I'm going to finish my row. I'm going to let you finish your row, and I'll meet you back here for the next one. Okay, so I have just finished row 13 of double crochet in the 3rd loop. Quick reminder, make sure that you got that final stitch, the last half double crochet. And now is a really great point to go ahead and count your stitches. Make sure that you have the correct number. Because you've got this row of double crochet, which are nice tall stitches, they're easier to pick out than like the half double crochets, for example, in the row before. So for the next 2 rows, you're going to repeat the last 2. So our next row, 14, is going to be half double crochet, and row 15 is going to be double crochet in the 3rd loop again. So before you move on, count those stitches, make sure you've got the correct number. You should have 301 or whatever other multiple of 4 plus 1. And then go ahead and repeat the last 2 rows. I'll meet you back here when I'm done. Okay, so we are back, and we have just finished rows 14 and 15 of half double crochet and then double crochet in the 3rd loop. And that is the first pattern repeat. Now, when you go to keep working on your wrap, you are going to repeat only rows 2 through 15. You're not going to repeat another double crochet row like we did here with the foundation double crochet. So you're going to start next with another lattice section after row 15. So you'll just repeat this one more time, and then you're going to end with a repeat of rows 2 through 6. So the lattice plus a double crochet row. And that will give you, grab the wrong end of my wrap here. Okay, so let me just kind of show you how this works out here. So we've got our first repeat here. You're going to do another lattice and repeat here. And then you're going to have a lattice and a double crochet at the top to complete it. Now, this is definitely a wrap that benefits, or this is definitely a pattern that benefits from blocking. Now you'll notice that there's a pretty big difference between this and then the nicer, more finished look of this. Blocking is going to open up those stitches, going to open up your lattice work here, and it'll give it the final shape. There are several different ways to block a project. I do go over them in the written pattern for this, briefly touching on the different types, but showing you my preferred method for this particular wrap, which is giving it a cold bath and gently squeezing, not wringing the water out of it, and then rolling it into a towel to kind of make sure I get all of the water, and then just pin it out and block it out. I don't currently have a video for the blocking process, but there is a video that I really do like from another YouTuber that I will link below for you, because I did find it very beneficial and I think she does a great job explaining it. So I'll put that in the description box for you as well. But yeah, so that is how you work the first 15 rows of the Alora wrap. And I hope that you found this helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I can't wait to see your wrap. So I hope that you share it with me. Make sure you use hashtag Alora Wrap and tag me at Hooks Books Wanderlust on Facebook, Instagram, and here on YouTube. So I will catch you guys on the next one. See ya.